everyone, welcome back to Velvet Moments. What if a moment that seems simple, like walking through an airport, actually holds something much deeper than it appears? What if the smallest details, the ones people almost miss, are actually the pieces that slowly form a bigger picture? This time, BTS's departure to the United States felt different. Not because of the schedule, not because of the destination, but because of how two people, Jimin and Jungkook, shared the same space in a way that felt so natural, yet impossible to ignore. From the very beginning, something in the atmosphere shifted. There were no dramatic gestures, no obvious actions meant to draw attention. And yet, that's exactly what made it stand out. Jungkook was seen walking slightly behind Jimin, his steps light, his expression carrying that familiar playful energy, but softer, more subtle than usual. He moved closer, teasing Jimin the way he often does. It didn't feel forced. It didn't feel like something planned for the cameras. It felt comfortable. Jimin, who initially walked at his own pace, slowly adjusted. Not because he had to, but because he chose to. And without a single word, they ended up walking side by side. It was a short moment. Very short. But somehow it changed everything. Because when two people naturally adjust to each other like that, it doesn't feel random. It feels like a silent understanding. Something that doesn't need explanation. And that's where things started to feel deeper. Then came another detail, something small, almost insignificant at first glance. The necklaces they were wearing. Individually it meant nothing. Just accessories. Just styling. But together, in the same place at the same time, it suddenly felt like more than a coincidence. The cameras caught it clearly. At one point, Jungkook seemed to subtly show his necklace, standing in a way that made it visible, before covering it again moments later. The movement was brief, almost ambiguous. Not obvious enough to confirm anything but not random enough to ignore. And beside him, Jimin stayed close. No exaggerated reaction. No attempt to highlight anything. Just quietly walking next to him, matching the same rhythm as if nothing needed to be explained. And maybe nothing did. Because when a connection is real, it doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't need grand gestures or clear declarations. Sometimes, it's reflected in the smallest things. The way two people share space, the way their steps align, the way coincidences seem to happen over and over again. That's what made this airport moment feel different. Not what they did, but how naturally it happened. It's no surprise that this moment quickly gained attention, even being discussed by Korean media. When something so simple sparks such wide conversation, it usually means there's something deeper people are picking up on, even if they can't fully explain it. Of course, there are also more rational perspectives. Some believe the matching accessories could simply be the result of stylist coordination. And that's a fair point. In an industry where image is carefully curated, nothing is ever completely random. But there's one detail that makes this situation feel a little different. This wasn't a photo shoot. This wasn't a staged event. This was the airport. A space that often feels more personal, more spontaneous. And that's why these moments feel more genuine. As always, the dynamic between Jimin and Jungkook exists in a gray area. Never fully defined but never entirely random either. They move within that space so naturally that every small interaction can carry meaning, depending on how you choose to see it. What's interesting is that moments like this have happened many times before. And yet this time it feels stronger. Maybe they haven't changed. Maybe the way people see them has. Over time, perspectives evolve. Things that once seemed ordinary begin to stand out. Details that were once overlooked suddenly feel important. And in that shift, everything starts to feel more meaningful. Cultural context is often brought into this conversation as well. In Korea, physical closeness in friendships is not unusual. Sharing space, casual touch and playful interactions are part of everyday dynamics. But even within that context, something about Jimin and Jungkook still feels unique. Not necessarily because they are closer than others, but because of the consistency and the natural way it shows. That's what makes it hard to ignore. At the same time, there's also a sense of nostalgia with the return of Run BTS. Seeing all 7 members together again brought a kind of warmth that fans had been missing. Their laughter felt real, their interactions effortless, and even the simplest games felt meaningful. But alongside that joy, old discussions resurfaced. A simple story once shared by Yoongi started circulating again, this time taken far out of its original context. What was originally just a casual mention of bathing together in the US suddenly became something much bigger in certain narratives. When in reality it was very simple. They were talking about a sauna. Something extremely common in Korean culture, and something the members themselves have openly talked about before. There was no hidden meaning. No deeper implication. But once a narrative is formed, people tend to shape everything around it. And that's where contradictions begin to show. Jimin has often been at the center of various speculations, paired with different people based on small interactions. A smile, a glance, even a brief touch can be interpreted as something meaningful. But when it comes to Jungkook, that same standard sometimes shifts. What was once seen as evidence becomes just friendship. And that inconsistency raises questions. Because at the end of the day, relationships aren't built on one moment. Not on one story. But on time, on shared experiences, on repeated interactions, on years of growing together. And in Jimin and Jungkook's case, that time is undeniable. They've grown up together. They've supported each other through countless moments. And maybe without even realizing it, all of that shows in the way they treat each other now. Quietly. Naturally. Without needing to explain anything. So in the end, that airport moment wasn't just about leaving for a trip. It wasn't about necklaces. It wasn't even about what was visible on the surface. It was about something much more subtle. A connection. Something you don't need to define to feel. And maybe that's what makes it so powerful. Because sometimes, the most genuine things are the ones that are never clearly stated. They exist in the silence. In shared steps. In fleeting moments that somehow stay with you longer than anything else. So now the question goes back to you. Was it all just coincidence? Or was there something more quietly revealing itself? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to stay tuned for more stories on Velvet Moments. Purple Heart.